Welcome to Adventure Nannies On Air. Today's episode was recorded live during one of our summit sessions as a part of our free ongoing educational webinar series to support nannies and professional childcare providers in elevating their careers and enhancing their skills. If you like what you hear, you can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or register for our next summit session at adventurenannies.com/summit-sessions. /summit-sessions.
Let's get started. I am so excited for tonight's summit session. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Reagan Fulton. I'm the marketing director here at Adventure Nannies. And before I introduce you to our incredible guests, I just want to take a few housekeeping notes. Tonight's session is a live podcast recording, so this will be going up after the fact onto our podcast. So please keep mics muted at all times. If you have questions, pop them in the chat and we will ask Ginny at the end. If you joined us back in July, you might have heard the replay. We have a wonderful part 2 today. We have the amazing Virginia Schwager here, who has over 15 years of experience in the childcare industry, not only as a nanny herself, operating in super complex roles with high net worth families and really with dynamic roles and an ability to create systems. And she now helps other nannies to join the ranks of professional nannies and really professionalize theirs. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about the Formulator Institute and what she does there, but it's really incredible work. But overall, we are just so grateful to welcome Dr. Virginia Schwager, or Ginny, as she goes by. We love Ginny, and welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited to see so many people. I'm really curious how many have been affected by the East Coast storm, and because of that, could attend. So happy snow day.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got lots of DC folk. Did we see any of you at our event a few weeks ago? Let us know if we saw you. That way we can make sure. I'm trying to look at all the faces. All three of us got to come to DC last week. So it was so wonderful to meet so many amazing DC nannies. Let's get started. Ginny, if you're just joining us, you didn't get a chance to listen to part 2, part 1, I highly recommend you go and listen to that when you get a chance afterwards, because it'll set a good foundation for our conversation today. But also, you can join in, and I'm sure you'll be able to gather a ton without having it. We did talk a lot about your journey the last time and kind of your background. And today we really want to break down the evolution of childcare. So I do want you to give a super brief. If you want the long version, go listen to part 1, but a super brief, just your nanny journey for everyone here today and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So super brief elevator pitch, but elevator version is I started nannying as a teenager and I fell in love with it. And I continued nannying throughout all of my education. And there were 2 things I was good at. And then that was taking care of infants and toddlers and children and coursework, school. So I kept doing both of those for as long as I possibly could. And then I was 6 months out of graduating with my doctorate in psychology. And I love psychology. I love how much insight it has given me into the world and to how people think, how I engage with the world. And that's what my doctorate was in. But I was 6 months out from graduating, and I decided that I wanted to go back to nannying full time. And I had to figure out how to make it more of a living. It couldn't just be something that patched me over from semester to semester or year to year. And so that's when I started working with staffing agencies and found high net worth, ultra high net worth, and high profile positions. And I found out very quickly that my psychology degrees were extremely useful. And now I am marrying everything together because I realized after job that if I'm experiencing such a high learning curve in the ultra high net worth space, and I feel like I'm pretty good at meeting the demands of like a high learning curve, I can only imagine what other people are going through. And not even imagine, I know what my colleagues were going through. And so that was a big motivation for me to start Formulator Institute. And I also started another company in the past year, and the 2 are marrying. In the next month, we will be combining the 2 companies right under the umbrella of the Formulator Institute. So that's Short and sweet. My specialty was always pretty much infants and toddlers, although I do work effectively with elementary age kids as well because mainly of my psychology degrees. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jose. That really was the short and sweet version, I promise, guys, because Ginny's amazing. She's done so much throughout her career. And that is why she is going to talk to us today about the evolution of childcare and really more of a big, we kind of did a little bit of a deep dive on your career the last time, and we're going to kind of zoom out a little bit more on the industry in general, kind of how it's changing, especially in the past 10 years or so, and kind of where it's moving toward. So, welcome. And let's start with what really sparked your passion for changing the way that, households really approach their childcare. Was there a specific moment in your career really that took it from, I just need to, do this for my career and my family to, oh, this is a bigger industry wide issue? What was that moment for you?
There were two distinct moments. One was a questionable onboarding experience I had with a very high profile, like all the means in the world, a staff of 200 people, and I didn't get onboarded well enough. And I love telling this story because it's a great example. And I think a lot of people resonate with it. It might not be to this degree, but it's, I was working with this family and I was their infant nanny. And we had just transitioned from one of their residences to another within the first month of me starting with this family. And I'm at this new kitchen sink in this new home that I'm trying to get the lay of the land of. And the sink starts backing up. Now, I don't know why, because this is the designated baby sink, right? Like the only bottle and milk are supposed to be going down this drain. So I'm looking for the garbage disposal switch and I cannot find it. I end up under the kitchen sink looking for a switch under there. I find a button and I push it. And I'm getting irritated at this point. I'm like, it's nap time. I just want to get these bottles done. I have so many other things I want to do. And I push the button again. And then I push it like 5 more times because, it's got to work once. So within, kid you not, 10, 15 seconds, I had a security detail at that window knocking and saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like,
Oh, it was a silent alarm, wasn't it?
it was a panic button. And I had been pushing it. I think the security team said I pushed it like 8 times.
Oh, yeah. They thought you were dying. Yeah, they
Yeah.
thought there was somebody in that house.
Yeah. And so I'm like, wow, okay, so this is enlightening. I had no clue that logically, yes, in hindsight, it makes sense. This was a very high profile environment. And I was working with security teams. And so it made sense that there were panic buttons in the house, but I just wasn't told about it. And so there's that moment. And then I had a, and I'm going to blank on it. Dang.
All good. I was saying, while you think about it, because like you said, like if this family with all the means in the world in this giant staff, let there be like, if a family like that can really take your time, I can vamp. If a family like that can miss those things, like where is the panic button and telling the nanny those things? What are the families who don't have a chief of staff and a house manager and an estate manager? What are they missing too? Yeah, that's a great example of just like how industry wide it is. And it's at all levels of families. It's not just families that it's their first time hiring a nanny or their first time hiring staff that need these systems and need the support. It's all levels of families.
Yeah, and thankfully that light dropping reminded me of the second. So that's great.
If I could vent for a second, it might bring it back up for you.
Right. And to put it all into a little bit more context, I'm in an Airbnb right now because I'm doing an intensive nanny training in DC. So I have this makeshift light bulb giving me a little bit more light for this video. And my dog decided to walk under the desk and trip the line. And there you go.
So
it's snow day / ice day here in DC. So, but anyway, so systems. I think today we're going to talk a lot about systems. And one thing, even with this family, that I realized was the nanny team doesn't have the systems in place for it to succeed. And it made me reflect on all of the jobs that I had. And I realized that was the theme. The infrastructure and the systems are failing the nanny teams. And I would come in and I would create these systems calendar. I would create communication protocols with the parents and the estate manager. And I would do it naturally because I knew these protocols would help everybody work better and work well together and collaborate. And it would give the parents what they're seeking, which is more content caregivers. And so with this family, I ended up becoming the operational lead. I created the standard operating procedures for our nanny team. We had a nanny team of 6, so it wasn't like I was creating protocols for 2 or 3 nannies. We had a childcare team of 6. We had a private school. We had a lot of moving pieces for the children. And I started to realize my brain works in systems, and my brain works in family systems and in team management. And that's when I was thinking of what do I want to do after nannying? Because I did get to a point where for me and my life goals, nannying at that level wasn't sustainable. With ultra high net worth, multiple property positions, I think you have to be ready to dedicate a lot to it. And that's great. But for me, again, that required a little bit of a pivot. But I still wanted to serve our nanny industry and to help kind of turn the tides on some of the more negative, maybe pain points we're seeing in the industry.
Absolutely. You mentioned like families wanting to retain that staff and have that happy staff, because I think that's one of a huge pain point, both for nannies and families, especially at this level, is turnover. Is families hiring nannies and thinking they're great or knowing they're great because they are great and it not working out for one reason or another. And can you talk a little bit of what that disconnect is in terms of what are the systems and what are some of the, obviously the systems are huge, but what are some of the main tools that you try to give parents and nannies when they're working together that are those huge turning points that really make a difference and help bridge that gap in between what families want in terms of being able to just have their children taken care of and know that they have peace of mind, and what nannies need to be supported? What are some of those things that you put in place, the top ones for you?
Yeah. So I want to start with a quote that I love because I encourage any parent, any estate manager, anybody to really reflect on this. And the quote is, "A bad system will beat a good person every time." And that quote is by W. Edwards Deming. And
Yeah.
so my question to everybody is, first and foremost, what systems do you have for your childcare team, for your nannies? And if you can't readily think of them, or if you think of payroll, that's like I'm talking about beyond payroll, what systems do you have in place to help your nanny team succeed? Oftentimes I walk into a house, to a family, and they don't have systems. They don't have communication protocols, don't have team meetings. It's funny because once I start talking with parents and estate managers, they're like, oh yeah, these systems make sense and I can see why they would be beneficial. And I think I get frustrated sometimes because I'm like, how did you think these nannies would succeed without any support, without any systems? Like you said, parents recognize these nannies are great. These nannies are caring for my children the way I want them to care for my children. And yet, oftentimes, nannies are leaving. And I'm like, yes. So let's figure this out together. So, what systems? Communication protocols, that's number one. But often in staffed homes, there are just so many. There's telephone. If there is a game of telephone going on in the home, it's going to do disservice to everybody, especially the children. And I say that because a bad system, meaning no systems at all often, leads to turnover. And what does that do to the children in your home? Or nannies are coming into work disgruntled. And what is that doing? When a nanny is feeling overly stressed, their ability to co-regulate goes down the tubes because they can't regulate themselves. If you're showing up to work so stressed that you can't have the semblance of a poker face, and not even the semblance of a poker face, but if you're coming in stressed to work, children have this uncanny ability to pick up on it. And
Yeah, even if you have the best poker face in the world, they'll still
yes,
pick up on something. Yeah.
yes. And so that's like, yeah. So communication systems.
And even with, I say, you talk about even with fully staffed homes, but I think that that's so important. Even if you're just one nanny working with parents, even if it was just one parent or a 2-parent household, you're looking at that dynamic of, I've even had it happen where dad boss says one thing, mom boss expects a different thing. There was that telephone, like you said, in between us, and expectations weren't set. So yeah, even if you're talking about just a one nanny system, you still need those protocols. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Or, sometimes it's not even telephone. Sometimes it's downright like expecting mind reading. And it's funny
Yes.
because what comes naturally or what seems natural to one family can be vastly different to another family. And so you have to understand, especially if you're hiring professional nannies, proper onboarding, proper discussions about your parenting style, about where you want the dirty laundry to go. Like, it seems so silly and they seem like small and irritating questions oftentimes to parents initially. But once these are like documented and once you have all these clarifying questions, like everybody knows the protocol, everybody knows the expectations, then the real work and real fun starts. But if nannies are coming into your home and they're worried about, oh, do I put the dishes into the dishwasher or is that the cook's job or the housekeeper's job? I don't know. Like the number of little decision points that you want to take off from the nanny because childcare is so messy and it shifts so much in any given day that we want very clear protocols so that the micro decisions throughout the day that that person is making is smaller so that they have more cognitive energy to put towards your children.
I love that. That is such a great way to form it, of just like making sure that, yeah, you're not having to make those little micro decisions that should be already made, should already have a plan. And
And
that really helps.
if they don't collaborate with a nanny, like nannies have great ideas and oftentimes they love giving their suggestions. If you as the parent want those suggestions, make that clear. And also if you have a
Yeah.
preference for how those suggestions are delivered to you, whether that's an email, whether that's a group chat, like I think it's okay to express your preferences and build systems around that. In fact, I would highly recommend it.
Absolutely. I would say, I think this is a great question, both segueing from that and to our next topic of kind of the childcare manager role of how do you navigate micromanaging and insecurity amongst coworkers? So you've got multiple nannies, those personality dynamics and maybe insecurities or wanting to be kind of, how do you navigate that? And is there a role that potentially could help with those dynamics in a big team?
Let me think about that. So I will say I was very blessed as a nanny to have parents and have managers who saw my strengths. And again, that was operational, household operations. I can create systems all day long. Again, I was very blessed to have work environments that embraced that. I will be honest, not every household is going to embrace not even just that as a strength, but if you have a strength, like I'm working with this family right now, and one nanny is very much like me. She thinks 10 steps ahead. Anyway, up until now, she wasn't given the feedback that those skills were valued. And then also, she was kind of shot down when she asked to do projects, even simple projects like cleaning the arts and crafts room or organizing the arts and crafts room. So I think there is a role, and it's an up and coming role. It's one that I'm in, and it's childcare manager. So for those of you who know a little bit about the private service industry, their estate managers manage the whole estate, and that oftentimes does include the childcare department. But childcare department is oftentimes the hotbed of issues, which is frustrating.
State managers hate nannies. They
They hate
nannies.
us.
Yes, the state managers hate dealing with nannies.
They hate us so much, and
Yep.
I feel for them. I can put myself in their shoes and be like, yeah, the last thing as an estate manager or house manager that I would want to deal with is the childcare staff.
a whole different ballgame than the rest of the
Oh,
staff. It's so much more dynamic and personal and yeah.
yes. Yes, and in my last episode, I think, or session, I think I said this, but I think it's very interesting that the staff in a home that is the most intimately connected, not only with the principals, but obviously with the children, and the staff that spend the most time with the principals are oftentimes the ones with the least amount of structure and support from house managers and estate managers. And it is because it is messy, it is interpersonal, it changes on a dime. Kid can get sick, school can get canceled because of snow. Nannies cannot be able to get to work because they're snowed in. It
And
just
kids grow. Kids
and
are
kids
constantly
grow.
changing. I think that's the most
Yes.
complex part is kids are constantly changing. Yeah,
Yes.
your job a year ago is not the same just because the kid's different.
Yes. And so I bring this up because I don't feel that the expectation of managing a childcare team, a nanny team, should be placed on an estate manager or a house manager in a lot of circumstances. If that person truly has the bandwidth and a little bit of the background to make it work and make it work well and give the team systems and structure to succeed, great. If they don't have the bandwidth, again, a bad system will beat a good person every time. So, are there resources you can give the nanny team that create a good system for good people? And that's really my motivation behind what I'm doing now. And I like to compare it to fractional estate management. So, in the estate management world, you have house managers and estate managers who manage just one family. And then you have, it's called fractional estate management, where one estate manager can actually be managing multiple families because the need is a little bit lower. So a lot of families who have nannies don't need a full-time childcare manager. There are certain examples, like I worked in a role where I had a childcare manager as my boss, and it opened my eyes to this world of, wow, having this person in between me and the estate manager and HR helped so much. And it doesn't have to just be for an ultra high net worth, high profile situation. So, yes, there is a role for it. It, again, is an up and coming role. And I've met a few others like myself who are taking it on, and we enjoy the work. I think that's another thing is like estate managers often don't enjoy it, but I personally love what I do because it is so messy and children grow and develop, and you have to think 10 steps ahead. And you're working with everybody. You're working with the parents, you're working with the estate managers, the nannies, and the children. And I think it takes a very dynamic person and I'm tooting my own horn. I was going to say I'm a very skilled person to do it. But, I'm learning every single day I'm on this job. And interpersonally, I feel like you have to be ready to hold your ground, but also see the world of this family system from everybody's perspective in order to create good systems. So,
So it takes a lot of emotional intelligence, I think, is the biggest thing. Not just skill, but like the emotional intelligence to know and be able to manage those different personalities is
yeah.
huge.
And then allowing yourself to have a day where every other word out of my mouth is going to be the F bomb.
Yes.
You
AKA
gotta
the best
try your
type of
best.
HR, right?
Yep.
I love it. So I'm curious, does the scope of this role, and obviously, it can manage different family to family and what's needed. Does it just encompass managing the nannies? Or is there would it encompass OTs or, medical? Is there anything else kind of like when I think about like how would it make sense to pitch it to a family, why this role makes sense? What all does it encompass? And, what are they getting out of it? Obviously, if you're doing part-time with multiple families, it's a little different, but, especially for full-time, what could be encompassed under that?
Yeah, I think it's so children have a whole ecosystem all of their own. They have school often. So I'm thinking maybe let's talk about a family with 3 children, 2 elementary age kids, and 1 infant budding toddler, right? So every child has their own unique development and needs. Oftentimes, we're talking about children who might require birth to 3 services, speech, OT. Maybe an elementary kid is experiencing anxiety, so they're also in therapy. maybe the parents are in therapy, or the parents have a very specific parenting philosophy that they want all of their caregivers to be trained on, and a way to care for their children and engage with their children. And so I think you hit the nail on the head that this is a very unique role, and it depends on the scope, and it depends on each individual family's needs and each individual's child's needs. So what a childcare manager can help with is scheduling and backup on-call coverage plans. So for the nannies, we can also help with scheduling the kids' events. We can take on communicating with the schools, communicating with PT, OT, scheduling camps. It's think of if you're a family, if you're a parent and you have a personal assistant who you send a lot of this information to, or you ask, hey, personal assistant, can you help me get the kids registered for camp? That's something that you can take off of that person's plate and put onto a childcare manager's plate.
I would say it sounds like a lot of the stuff that often nannies step in and are able to support families with. However, especially with multiple children, that often takes them away from being able to provide quality childcare because they are having a split priority. So I can really see a value in really allowing the nannies to do what they do best and
Well,
focus on the care for the children and not have to spend that emotional energy on the calling the school and
yeah.
finding the camps, and really having somebody dedicated to that is sounds really amazing.
And also then just talk about scope creep. How many nannies actually
Uh,
do these duties and it's in their job description? And that's another piece that I about in the first session is scope, and how many nannies find themselves doing jobs that are well outside their job description, and why that's bad long term for a family, especially if it's not recognized during an annual review or something like that, where, it will wear on you. Even if you're good at it, it will wear on you that you're doing essentially two jobs, and
yeah.
one of those jobs is not recognized on paper, and
I would say
oftentimes
not only is it
financially.
wearing on you, but if you step away from the role and somebody else steps in, that's not documented. And those things are going to fall through the cracks for that family. So that's
Exactly.
not going to get done because no one knows it's being done.
Right. And I think it's also, especially when we talk about scheduling and hierarchies within a team, a lot of times parents, not just parents, but maybe even, estate managers, but whoever is in charge doesn't feel comfortable having a hierarchical arrangement within a child care department. And it's understandable. I often do encourage as a child care manager that we have dedicated skill sets for each caregiver. So, like I was saying, this one nanny here in DC, operational. Like every international domestic trip that this family goes on, this nanny should be included simply because she thinks 10 steps ahead and she executes it all. And that's so crucial when you travel with multiple children. Another is if a nanny is really great at like interpersonal engagement with the kids, take some of the household operations off of her plate. But that skill set is no less important than the household,
Yeah,
right? And so
absolutely.
maybe that nanny takes on training other nannies, like, hey, this is how I show up to work and this is how I get emotionally attuned with kids. Or I found that this way to engage with little Jimmy works really well. And so if you
Or
please.
they're in charge of curating the library because they know what books the kids will connect with. Oh, I've done
Exactly. What music
that.
they like. Yeah, they're the DJ. They know these things that make the children tick in a different way, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what I do as a manager. And I come in and I'm like, okay, you are not just a nanny. Every nanny I have worked with has skills, and skills that go beyond childcare. And I use childcare in quotes because it was societally, when, well, this is a different conversation, but it's a loaded term. And I think the number of people I have conversations with, I'm like, do you know how many transferable skills a nanny has? And I can
Absolutely.
list 10 right now for you. Yeah.
I actually had a job back in, like I took a brief stint before I like really dove into professional nannying, where I had been a nanny for a little bit and I got a managerial role because they're like, oh, you've been a nanny? Yeah. Oh yeah, you watch kids, you can do this.
Yeah.
They trusted that it was a mom. So she's like, I trust that you have
Yeah.
these managerial skills because you've worked with kids. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's true.
My favorite is always, "Oh, you're a nanny? You must be the most patient person in the world." I'm like, "I guess. That's not the first thing that comes to my mind. I
It's
can
not
be
my top skill, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah. But
I love it. So incredible. So I am curious, we talked a little bit about the intimate nature of nannying and being in the homes. With these systems, is there any tools or systems specifically that you have to help families and nannies to really navigate that messy area in between the professional standards and impersonal relationships, and how to really navigate that balance of, you are in our home caring for our children and getting to know them on a personal level and maintaining those professional boundaries and standards. Is there any like specific systems or tips that you have for people on maintaining that balance?
I wish I could say, yes, there's a system. There is one protocol that, is cookie cutter, and this will help everybody figure this dynamic out. The hard truth is, and again, this is why estate managers often don't want to handle the nanny team. The hard truth of the matter is no, it's trial and error. It is good communication from every single party. It is mediation. One parent's way of communicating with or desires for communicating with the nannies is going to be vastly different than that nanny's next role. And unfortunately, it's almost like you're starting with a blank slate all over again, and you have to figure out the family systems and you have to figure out the personalities. And it can be really frustrating as a nanny if you try different ways of communicating with a parent and you feel like you're not getting through. And that can be hard because oftentimes it can also be the parent's perception that or opinion that it's not your position to bring up concerns about my child's development or XYZ. And so knowing your role is really hard because you care so much about the children. And I think, again, one of the reasons I like what I'm doing, and not like, I love what I'm doing, is because I come in and I can kind of be that mediator. I can ask the parents specifically, like, how do you want to communicate with your nanny team? What feedback specifically are you open to? What feedback don't you want the nanny's input on? And I've been on that receiving end where you think that the children could benefit from XYZ, but your professional position is to care for the children within the dynamics of that family. And that is a hard pill to swallow, but it is one that gets more and more complex, I would say, with the more affluent the family is and the more demands that the parents have on them from external sources. So know that there's no system aside from, again, communicating. If you're finding that you have high nanny turnover or that things aren't going well, or your hunches things aren't going well, then how can you open up a conversation, and what space and arena is that appropriate in? And as the nanny, also understanding the harsh truth is oftentimes it's not your position to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, the navigating the boundaries of these little ones that you love so much and you care about their development, but remembering that you aren't their parent is, I think, one of the hardest parts emotionally about
Yep.
nannying, and why I always commend nannies. And one of the beautiful things about career nannies who are able to step in and step out of these roles and be able to show up for the next family is really beautiful.
Well,
Is
and
there
I will
any
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I will say one more thing about this because if if you are an up and coming nanny and you get certifications in Montessori or any type of specialty, and you are hoping to get a family aligned with that philosophy, I urge you caution in the amount that you try to exercise that philosophy in the home. And I say that because oftentimes you'll see job posts that say, oh, a Montessori trained nanny, right? But Montessori is a based education program. And the reality is, when you get into the home, you don't have the structure often to follow through on a lot of those things that you have been trained in. Or stepping back and observing and letting the kids do a little like risk taking might be theoretically what the parents want because it's within the Montessori philosophy or whatever. But in practice, that's a reaction point for the parents and them like, why aren't you doing your job? Right. So if you have all these certifications, I want you to go into jobs thinking, okay, these are points that I can integrate when appropriate. But my number one job as a nanny is to figure out how to care for these children within the family systems, not within a theoretical educational philosophy. I see that mistake over and over again. But it's also, I understand, like, you're seeing jobs that are posted about, oh, Waldorf or some educational model or playtime on the floor or whatever. Like, all these things, great. They're giving you tools to use when it's appropriate. But again, you're not in a school setting. You're in a messy home setting, which is great.
Yeah. And
But
the beautiful thing is that a lot of those philosophies are designed for school systems to be able to meet the needs of a large group of children. The beautiful thing about a nanny is you're meeting the need of one, maybe two or three, but in theory, one child. It's one-to-one care. You're able to customize their care and their environment to what that child needs. And Montessori is great. Montessori doesn't work for every child, though, and every part of it doesn't work. So don't, one thing to don't forget that the beauty of what you're doing is that you get to take all your knowledge
yes.
and make it custom exactly what this kid needs,
Yeah.
which I think is one of the most beautiful things about nannies and what we get to do.
Yeah, I think the level of depth that nannies get to have with the child, that's what always drew me to. I'm like, oh my goodness, I get to be emotionally attuned to one or two kids all day long. And that is so fulfilling. Because I know
my whole job is to know what they need and meet those needs. Yeah.
right. And if I and I'm pretty good at my job. So I have a happy kid most of the time. But I'm not saying nannies don't get certifications. I'm saying get a plethora of certifications in a variety of theories. Because again, like each child's needs are different. And the way that all of these these certifications mesh together, if you can zoom out and say, oh, wow, what does Montessori, what does NCS, what do all of these things have in common? And focus on that and then bring in the micro actions that you've been trained on, you're going to have so much more of a fulfilling experience than you are if you go into a job with the expectation that you're following one philosophical principle.
So good. And I think that just kind of brings it around to our whole thing of the modern family and modern, the evolution of childcare is this really, if you want to be successful and at the top of the career and be able to land whatever role that you want, knowing all of those things really is part of what can set you apart from the pack. A lot, at Adventure Nannies, you saw a wrap post, we received 15,000 applications last year. And you can bet the ones that are certified in this and this and this were for sure the ones that, got seen and were at the top of those lists because that's what's most appealing to families and modern families who have the internet at their and can learn about all of these different things. I think that's really the difference between now and, being a nanny 20 years ago and the difference in how connected parents are. They want the nanny who can do it all or the team of nannies who can do it all, hopefully. And so just knowing and investing in your time and knowing your strengths. And so that way, hopefully that childcare manager can step in and activate your strengths where they'll be most useful.
Yeah, I think there's, if you want to set yourself apart in contract negotiations, be like, continued education is really important to me. Little Jimmy struggles with dyslexia. I would love to take a course on dyslexia. And it's truthful. You should. And I don't like shoulds, but being curious about anything continued education related will set you apart from other nannies. Never lose that curiosity that oftentimes I think nannies get involved or professionally or what, working with children, you have to have that sense of curiosity. How can you not? Aren't you drawn to children because they're mind blowing? I loved birth to 3 because so much happens developmentally between birth and 3. I'm like, it never ceased to amaze me. And every child was different. And so never lose that curiosity and extend that curiosity on to continuing education. I know it is it can cost money, but in the long run, you're doing yourself and the world and the children that you're caring for a service. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're not only building the value for your current family there, like you said, Jimmy has dyslexia, but then you've got that on your resume for the next one as well.
Yep.
I love it. Before we wrap up, I just want to open up the floor for any questions in the audience. Please drop them in the chat. I know we got one during the thing, but if you have any questions for Ginny on nanny manager role or Formulator Institute, please drop them. And while you think of those and drop any in the chat, I want to give you the chance, Ginny, to just share a little bit more about Formulator Institute and the course. I think some folks would be curious to hear about the course and kind of what it involves and kind of like what you learn in the course. Yeah.
Yeah, so so Formulator Institute started because nanny agencies were approaching me saying, "Hey, do you do nanny trainings like more than just beyond the private families you contract with for private nanny trainings?" I was like, "No, but I could totally create a course. Why not?" So that was my summer project, and the course is a 20-hour self-paced course. You have reflection prompts, quizzes. You have about 200 pages. I wrote a book that covers a lot of content in 200 pages, and that is yours to kind of keep and review. We go over everything from, from reading a comment. So we go over everything from kind of like legal structure, which is something we did not talk about today, which I'm kind of glad we didn't because it's tax season and I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of nannies and families about appropriate compensation and blanking on the words, but like legal structure for a nanny to workers' comp. We also go over very broad psychologically based child development principles and theories and just general terms that you can sprinkle into your resume. For example, I use the word attunement today. We go over what is emotional attunement, why is it so critical for child development. So kind of I was talking about those overarching themes that a lot of these, certifications have. So I go over a lot of those child development theories and principles that all of these courses touch on. And then we also talk heavily about what it means to work for high net worth, ultra high net worth, and fully staffed homes, and what systems are great to have in place when you are working with a staffed home, and how these systems you can try as a nanny to introduce. But yeah, again, may or may not be received well because of your position in family and in the home office and in the staffing arrangement. So
I think that leads, because this is a really good segue just to the question we have.
Yeah.
Is if somebody is trying to introduce that into, like, how do you work with the family? Is this something that if you're working in a fully staffed home and they need this, can they introduce to you? How do they connect their principals with you to help introduce some of these systems?
Wonderful question. So I mentioned that I have two companies and that end of February, early March, we are merging the two. So, and they will both be under the Formulator Institute. So Formulator Institute initially was just the training course and the training body that I've started to create. And we have a couple other courses coming out this year, subject matter experts, really cool. So you can go to the website and the end of February, so in a month, you will be able to see more pages and more information. So not only do we help nannies that way, but we also help with these private family engagements. We can do consultations. We can fly out for a couple days. I'm here in DC for a month doing intensive training for a family. I do childcare management. So that website currently is cultivated-care.com. But if you want a family to reach out to me or you want to give them my information, you can give them Ginny, Ginny, at Formulator Institute. Let me see if I can spell that out. Institute.com. I didn't want to mess that up for people. And the etymology of Formulator is really interesting, so go and look it up. We don't have time today to go over it, but I encourage everybody to look up that word. Yeah, so you can reach me there. I have a calendar link on the Formulator Institute website. You can put yourself in my calendar. You can have your family, your estate manager, your parent. Anybody can put themselves in my calendar. I'm here for nannies, for families, here for anybody who just needs to chat or wants a consultation. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for participating and listening and learning today. I'm going to put you on the spot like I like to do. Give our nannies in the audience just one takeaway. If there's one thing that you want them, one system or one tool that you would want them to go and try to implement, what would it be?
Okay. This is not related to what we were just talking about.
Well, I put you on the spot for a reason. Yep.
No, okay. So we talked a lot about systems today, but before you can create good systems, you need good self-awareness and good situational awareness. So the one thing I would say to anybody listening is prior to implementing or thinking about problem solving with systems and solutions is do a nice hard look at yourself and the people around you and try to put yourself in as many people's shoes as possible prior to problem solving.
That's
So,
incredible. I'm going to take that away. I have things that I'm going to take that for. So thank you so much for being here, Ginny. And yeah, thank you for being here.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with us.
We'd love to stay connected. You can find all of our past episodes and summit sessions on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast fix.
For the inside scoop on the latest job opportunities and community stories, you can always find us at adventurenannies.com or come say hi on Instagram, Facebook, or Blue Sky.
If you loved this episode, we'd be over the moon if you leave us a review. It's a huge help in getting the word out to other folks.
And if you hated this episode, well, we're sorry. It can't have been that bad if you made it this far, right?
We'll catch you next time.
Bye!